Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are all doing well. Today we're going to be doing a review on the MaxFerris Project Griffin that they sent me over. And this PC comes in at just $490 USD. So it's a pretty great price to performer at that price range. We'll get into all that stuff here in the review. But before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes, I feel like I kind of have to come out and say this before we really do anything else. MaxFerris has given me a discount code on the Project Griffin, which is what this PC is. So if you guys want to go and purchase one of these systems, you guys can use the discount code to take $15 off of a purchase of one of these specific computers. Like, it's not going to work on anyone else, it's just going to work on this one. But I also get a 4% kickback on that. And I need you guys to understand that I just kind of did this because I knew it was going to give you guys a benefit of it. I'm very grateful to anyone who uses it. You don't have to use it. I'm not going to be promoting it this entire video. But it will reduce the price to $475 instead, so it's kind of a win for you guys, and it's also a win for me if you guys use it. But again, I don't care about it. It's still a nice consideration on their part, but it's not going to influence this review whatsoever. I'm still going to review this thing like I bought it with my own money. As well, there are going to be timestamps in the video description, and it's probably going to appear across the little kind of scrubbing bar around here so you guys can kind of watch what you want to watch. And one last thing, if you end up watching this video and enjoying it, please leave a like. It really helps this video get recommended to other people out there. And it helps me grow as a channel as well. If you like this sort of content and you want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The larger this channel becomes, the more and more opportunities we are going to have to do more PC reviews like this and just more reviews in general. So yeah, you guys can help support the channel there or just keep on watching the video. Alright, first things first, I think we got to talk about the specs. Now, the system that I got was the base model with no sort of upgrades. So the system has a Core i5 4570S, a 4-core, 4-thread CPU with two 8GB sticks of DDR3 memory. The GPU is a RX 560 with 2 gigs of GDDR5 memory. It has a 430 watt 80 plus Thermaltake Smart PSU. And for storage, you get a 500 gigabyte Western Digital hard drive. The case is a DIY PC, DIY A1 BK, and it has 3 up here red LED fans controlled over a Molex connector. So with my week of testing on this machine, I can say I was a little surprised when it came to its actual performance in games. For the most part, if you're playing in the 1080p low settings range, you're going to be getting some pretty decent FPS. In CSGO at 1080p low settings, I was getting around 100 FPS. In Apex Legends at 1080p low settings, I was getting around 40 to 50. And in Destiny 2, I was hitting around the 60 to 70 FPS benchmark with, again, those same low settings. Now, Destiny 2 and CSGO are pretty well optimized titles in general and can run on pretty much any sort of hardware, but the fact that I was able to hit above 30 FPS on Apex at 1080p, I thought was pretty amazing. Now, the one thing that you do notice when it comes to performance is the hard drive. I haven't used a PC for about 2 to 3 years with a hard drive for its actual boot drive, and it was honestly as god-awful as I remember it. The system would take forever to boot any sort of game or app in general, and it would probably take around like a minute just to turn on and to get into Windows. And it was thoroughly unenjoyable to have to sit and wait a full minute just to get into a CSGO deathmatch lobby when the game was already loaded. Now, MaxFerris does give you the option to upgrade and add an SSD to the system for the boot drive, which is, a pretty essential upgrade, I feel like, for most gaming PCs right now, just to have somewhat faster loading times and general applications. But to add any of those SSDs, it gets a little bit expensive. So right now, to add a 120 gigabyte SSD, it's going to cost you an extra $30. And for a 240 gigabyte one, that's going to be an extra $50. And for a 500 gigabyte one, that's going to be $90. For an upgrade, which I think is a necessary one for most users, I think that's a bit too much considering the retail pricing for most 500 gigabyte SSDs is around $60 USD. And I know they're probably paying around half of that for wholesale pricing. So I would just kind of suggest to most people to either buy an SSD yourself and then just kind of install Windows on that when you get this thing. You don't have to do a whole lot. You can probably just get some double-sided tape, slap on the back, and then get a SATA cable and just plug it in. It's not that hard of a procedure, and it's going to save you a lot of money instead of actually upgrading from their website, which, again, I think that it's reasonably priced if you're someone who like really needs it, but it is still a bit expensive. When it comes to memory, this system does pretty well. It has 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM in dual channel configuration. That means that you can have almost any game you want open and have enough memory left over for 3 to 4 other applications while having little to no performance hit. Now, when it comes to power and thermals, the system I think does pretty well. Now, the PSU is a low-end 430 watt one by Thermaltake, but it does have an 80 plus efficiency rating, so it's not all that bad. Though I would have liked to see maybe a 500 watt one just in case someone would want to upgrade their GPU later down the line. And when I ran my power and thermal stress tests on the system, I really didn't have any issues with the PSU for this configuration. And to add on, the VRMs also did fine as well. In general, the power delivery system seems to be adequate for the system, so there's no sort of bottlenecks there. But this was kind of expected since these parts are pretty low end and therefore don't have large power requirements. Now, for cooling, the system did fine. The GPU got up to 78 degrees C under a full load for about 30 minutes, and the CPU got up to 80 degrees C under a full load for the same 30 minutes. Now, again, I got both of these numbers while maxing out the CPU and the GPU at the same time to kind of see how hot these processors would get in a worst case scenario. Again, these are lower end parts, so they aren't going to need great airflow or heat sinks in order to keep themselves under decent thermal conditions. Now, cable management in the system I think is fine. An effort was shown when it came to how organized the cables were in the back. Everything was zip tied where it could be, and all of the unneeded PSU cables were stuffed underneath to where people couldn't see them. They did a really good job with working with what they had when it came to cable management, but the case they chose for this PC did not do them any favors. One of the first things that I noticed was the CPU cable stretching from the left side all the way up to the top right in order to be plugged in where it's supposed to go. Now, most cases will have a 2-inch kind of spacing between the top of the motherboard to the top of the case, and usually within that space they'll have like a little cutout, so you can just kind of work up the cable up the back of the case and just kind of plop it over, so you're not having this thing have to reach around the entire side of the system. This case, they don't have that. There is no room between the top of the motherboard and the top of the case. It is literally right there. So again, they kind of worked with what they had, but for what I think this PC represents for the price point that it is, I think they did a good job with cable management for what they had. They had a lot of extra cables kind of lying around since this isn't a modular PSU. And again, the case did not give them any help. So I think that they did fine for what this system is kind of built for. Now, the case itself, kind of like how I told you, it's kind of cheap. The metal is pretty thin, and it doesn't allow for very good cable management, like we were kind of talking about. But if you kind of can get past those things, I think it looks pretty nice considering what kind of price point it's at. It's got this kind of like nice brushed aluminum plastic looking thing at the front. So I think it looks pretty nice. And then for all around the PC, again, it's a black aluminum. And then you also have this tempered glass side panel, so you can kind of see the insides of the PC. Now, when it comes to like SSD and hard drive mounting, it's not great. The ability to mount anything in here is not great. Honestly, I would just not use any of the system mounts and just kind of find an open spot to get some double-sided tape and just throw in an SSD instead of trying to work with the stupid screws and the really cheap mounting mechanisms that they have in there. One part that I do have a critique with on this system is its fans, or rather their layout. Now, I understand why MaxFerris has the layout that they do, because after all, they want their customers to kind of be able to see these red LEDs back here, right? And they really kind of sacrificed airflow, and it did kind of cause a hindrance. So they ended up putting 2 fans at the top for intake and 1 at the back for exhaust. And for those of you who kind of understand the laws of convection or who build PCs a lot, you can probably understand why that's a bad idea. So most of the time when you're building a PC, you want to have the intake up here at the front so that the fans are blowing in cold air from the front, and then you're going to have exhaust out the top and the back because, as we all know, heat rises. So again, that's the most efficient way of usually doing it, so that you're blowing in cold air and then it's coming out the top and the back when the air is being sucked in by these coolers and then kind of being turned into hot air, and then now the fans are able to easily blow it out the top. See, in this case, you're forcing in the cold air where the hot air kind of wants to escape. So you're causing a hindrance on the system's ability to have a good kind of circulatory system for air to make sure that all the parts are cool. While this doesn't matter too much with this low-end system, with any of the higher-end ones who use a lot more power, this can cause a massive problem. Also, like I mentioned before, these fans are powered over Molex, indicating that they are pretty cheap. So you're not going to be able to control them over PWM or something like that. So these things aren't going to ramp up or ramp down depending on how hot the processors get, like you get with a PWM controlled fan. Now the good thing is with these fans is that they don't make any sort of obnoxious noise. I mean, the system's been running this entire time that I've been recording, so you might be able to hear like a little hum with it, but other than that, there hasn't really been any like obnoxious like ball bearings that are dry or something like that that are causing the thing to make a really bad sound. I think that they're fine in terms of its noise, but I think that for people who are looking for silent operation, you should probably either invest in a different PC or maybe just kind of switch these ones out with maybe some Noctuous ones or something like that. Now, if you guys want to see how this thing was packaged, make sure to check out my unboxing video of this PC. It should be in a card up top here if you guys want to go check it out. But for those of you who don't want to watch it, I can give you a little bit of a rundown of how this PC was packaged. So the PC came in a cardboard box that was pretty banged up when I got it, and if the packing was any worse than when I got it, probably would have had dents and scratches, which it didn't. It came in perfectly fine. There's no cosmetic injuries. There was nothing kind of flying around with the case. I think they did a pretty good job, and it was sufficient enough for this particular PC. So the main way that they packaged it is that there's two large foam pieces that go on either side of the case, and then when they slide it into the actual box, they have some bubble wrap in between the glass side panel and the side of the box, and they have a large foam insert in between the back of the case and the other side of the box. So if anything actually hits the box, the bubble wrap and the foam pieces should be kind of absorbing most of that damage instead of just kind of having it open on both sides. Now, when it comes to protecting the internals, there was like just a roll of bubble wrap just kind of just loosely sitting there. Now, I did contact MaxFerris, and they said that this is not something that should have happened. They said it was a problem with one of their builders. They didn't do it right. So basically, they just said that they will usually kind of like tape it somehow onto like the GPU or something like that in order to make sure that it doesn't get hit by anything. Though I don't think that's probably a very good way of packaging the system, and especially if you're using like a higher end GPU where it's got a lot more weight to it. From a lot of companies, they kind of use these little insertable foam plastic things that you kind of break open and then you put them into the PC and they expand, and they kind of get hard too. So when they expand in the system, they will kind of go underneath the GPU and over top of it to give it some support so that it's not going to wobble around and maybe break itself out of the socket from its own weight. So with those, I think it'd probably be a little bit of a better investment than just getting a roll of bubble wrap, just to make sure that if these systems that have higher end GPUs that have a lot more weight to them from those beefier heat sinks, it probably would be the best idea to not go the bubble wrap route and just kind of go with those foam inserts. When it came to software that was pre-installed on the PC, there was none, which is a good thing. It was a completely fresh install of Windows 10. And they're pretty much unlike most companies like Dell and HP, because Dell and HP end up putting like heaps of pre-installed software programs called bloatware is what we like to kind of call in the tech community. And basically those programs will just like cause a bunch of slowdowns for your system because they're running in the background, as well with the whole hogging of storage space. So it's kind of nice that you're just getting a fresh install of Windows. You're not getting any extra stuff going on there. Now, this PC did have a completely fresh install of Windows 10, but it also didn't have an activated version of Windows. Now, this kind of came to my surprise since I didn't really read through the entire description of this PC. MaxFerris does explicitly state on their website that their systems do not ship with an activated version of Windows. Now, this is kind of a plus and a minus, I guess, depending on how you look from it. This is a cost-saving measure for them so that they're able to offer these PCs at these low price points. But some people really don't want to go the route of finding their own Windows 10 key. So I always like to just encourage people to give them the option. If it's not included into the price, I think that's great if people want to save money. But if someone wants to be able to have it and not have to go out and do it themselves, not have to like go out on eBay or like these other kind of third-party sites that sell them, I think it's better if you just kind of give them the option to do that. But other than that, I think there's really no problem when it comes to the actual software that was installed on this computer. Now, this PC also comes with a full 2-year part warranty. So if anything goes wrong with the system, they will cover you in the event of like a processor or like a GPU failing or any other system malfunction that's not on your end. So that's also a really nice thing to have with one of these computers. So what are my overall thoughts on the system? If you're someone who is on a low budget and is just looking to play some esport or other games on low settings, I think that this is a great system. While the system doesn't have a whole lot of upgradability, I think it has a lot of good initial value with its base set of parts, including an SSD. I think an SSD needs to be a for sure upgrade for anyone who buys one of these systems. This PC is also good for anyone who might need to do like some basic office work or something like that, needs to do like Excel or something, or Word documents and stuff like that, and you want something for your kid to play some games on when you're not using it or something like that, or just kind of like a family computer in general. I think this is a great system for that. It's going to last you probably a couple years, and maybe you can get a different system after that. But for the meantime, this thing plays most games like Minecraft and Roblox just fine. Or again, if you just want to buy this for your kid for like a Christmas present or something like that, and you want a PC that's on a budget, I think this is a great option to go for. This system might not be an absolute workhorse of a computer, but it comes in at a great price point of $475 if you use my coupon code. And it gives you some great performance for that price point. While MaxFerris is a small company, I think they do a lot of things right. They give some great value to the customer, and they put in a lot of work into their systems. They're going through some growing pains, and I think that's acceptable for any company that's in their position. But I think what is promising is that they're doing a lot of things right that a lot of the good PC manufacturers do out there. They give you a lot of value for your build. They do the best that they can when it comes to the things that they have. Again, you're limited to what you can put into a PC. They give you the upgrades that you might need, and they just kind of give you everything that a normal gaming PC manufacturer would do, and that has a good reputation. Like iMaPower, CyberPower, all those companies that have a huge market base, they do all those things right. And I think MaxFerris can be one of those companies. I'm super excited to see what kind of PCs they come out with here in the future and how they grow as a company. That's something that I always kind of like to see with these smaller end companies that are trying to provide some immense value to the consumer. Well, that's about all I really have to say to you guys about this PC. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you to MaxFerris for sending this to me. I can't thank you guys enough. It was a lot of fun messing around with this computer, just kind of seeing its performance level and writing this entire script and doing this review. It was a lot of fun. And for those of you guys who were just sitting here watching this video, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and watch me. It means a lot to me. If you guys didn't enjoy this, it took me a lot of time to put this thing together. So if you guys do want to leave a like, it really helps me out. And if you guys want to see more stuff like this, hit that subscribe button. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace.